right, so we have some ideas of how to pull things back into the distance with the vantage point, and we can make a box. What else can we make? Well, houses can look an awful lot like a box. So let's try out a 1-point perspective house. That means I'm going to see it from the front edge. We're just going to make a pretty stereotypical classic story house that has a pitched roof, those sort of classic things that hardly anybody actually lives in, but are easy to kind of understand and draw. And then I'm going to put my 1-point perspective does not have to have the vantage point necessarily in the middle. You can have this off-centered. So let's go ahead and pull it off to the side, and that is my vantage point. Again, I'm going to suck the sides back, but I don't have to draw all the way back. If my building's not going to go all the way back, I can guesstimate where I want it to end right now and just save myself a little bit of work. Remember, we want to work smart and not hard, right? If I don't need it, why put it in there? Now I'm going to put a roof on here, so I'm actually not going to do the top line because, again, let's make my life a little bit easier. So there's the front side of my house. To make a gable or like that kind of pitched roof, when it's from the front like this, it's actually relatively simple, and that I can find the center. If I want to do good perspective, strong perspective, because sometimes you look back and you're like, why didn't I just take the time to do that? And this gives me the absolute center of that. I'm going to pull that pitch down and a little bit over. As we know, in Southeast Alaska, the edge of this roof comes over to protect our house from the rain. If you have constant dripping and water on the side of your house, your siding will rot. Not great, expensive, right? I can take all of this off now. So I'm drawing fairly light, or trying to remind myself to, because I don't want to have to work too hard to take that all off. Right? So I'm just kind of cleaning this up as I go, because if you have too many lines, it can get really confusing. So now this is the top of the pitch, sucked back into the distance to that vantage point. Now my vantage point is really quite big, which can make it a little bit off if you are measuring that sort of, that dot around and around. So I'm going to make the pitch go back again. I'm not going to work too hard. And this pitch is going to match this pitch. Is it exact? I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at the edge of this and the edge of this and the edge of this to try to make that work, right? So now I have a roof on my house, which is kind of exciting. That's a nice thing to keep ourselves out of the rain, which is one of the big parts we're trying to do with a house, right? Is keep ourselves out of the weather. So let's go ahead and put a door on here. Now, doors are one of the areas in windows people can get through this, and then all of a sudden they put a door on and they get all wanky. Let me show you what they do, and then I want to show you how it's different. So we know, our thinking brain says door. We know, okay, straight, and it might be a little bit big of a door. And then we say doors are flat and straight on the top. They're flat and straight on the top. So that doesn't look too bad, really, but I want you to see the difference. Now look at here. There's some guidelines I can look at and go, wait a minute, this and this seems weird. Look at that space there, and this is at an angle, this is at an angle. Reminder, all your verticals are always perpendicular to the ground. They're 90 degrees, right? If you were to attach this over 90 degrees. But all of your horizontals are all linked back to the vanishing point. They go back into the distance. So even the top of the door is going to get sucked back into the distance. See how that puts it onto the wall, right? Ooh, and look what I saw. The edge of this. I just noticed I had the edge of that house, but not the edge of my roof. Didn't like that. Okay. So let's put a window in, same principle. I can kind of go, let's see how far away from the door, about here. And it's going to end about there. Then I go ahead and put the sides on. There we go. If I want to make this that kind of classic window that's split, verticals, horizontals are going back to the distance. Now, if I want to put some windows on this side, totally a different thing, right? These are still going to be 90 degrees. because we're on a flat side surface of this house. A lot of times you'll see trim. This would suck back too, around windows. And I always thought that trim was to make houses look good. I don't know, just like a frame on a picture or something. But in actuality, it's really hard to hang what they call hang a window, and to make it airtight and make it so that the window edge and the house edge and everything meets up. So a framing actually hides all of that and tucks it all away. So you have that little piece of wood or whatever kind of edging on top, and that covers up that gap. And then you can put caulking, it's called caulking and things like that, into that space so that it's airtight, because that can also be an area where you lose a lot of heat. Okay, so now we've got some windows, we've got a door. I could put a handle on here of some sort. I could put a window in the door if I wanted to. I'll go back to the details when I want to show you a street, and then I'll show you at the end a lot of the details we can do to this house. So let's give ourselves a little bit of green in front of the house and around. But let's say this is a house in a suburban kind of area, so it has a road in front of it. That road, I was debating about it kind of coming back. For this one, we'll just make this go back. You can do it, once you know how to do it, you can really make some pretty crazy things. This is the house on the edge of nowhere, and that's why it comes across like this. Let's do this, and then we'll do some trees on the other side of this. So then here, now this is what's interesting too, right? Theoretically, let's see, I'm just kind of looking at the width here, trying to find the middle. It doesn't mean it's going to be straight. It looks kind of like the middle. And I'm just going to give myself a light line. Now, if I've got dots down the middle of the line, things get smaller as they get further away. So, proportionately to the house, maybe this would be about this big. And they're going to get smaller and less noticeable. Okay, so our darkest darks, our lightest lights are all in the foreground. And everything that's further away gets grayer and softer as it goes away. So now I've got the edge. I could give myself a sidewalk so that the kids and the families have a place to walk, their dog, or the little kids can ride on their bike. Let's give a little edge or a little meat to the sidewalk. Now often, and this is another place that people kind of have a hard time, is you want to put those splits in the sidewalk. Well, we have a tendency to think that it might go like this because it's like a ladder. You think about it, that it goes across. Well, that's not the case. We're dealing in this 90-degree angle kind of world. So that means that all of those, and this is weird even when I look at it, these 90 degrees, this is going to, watch how it flattens. It pushes it down onto the ground. See how it flips it down? But watch what happens when I do it the other way. Kind of our natural inclination is to make it sort of like a ladder, which connects it. See how it sits up? It sits up in the air. This kind of flips it up in a weird kind of way. So the other thing that happens is these guys have dogs. People like to have fences on around their house so that you can keep the dog in. So let's say they're in the middle of building it, because I don't want to put the fence in front of this. And so these would get actually closer together because of this distance is getting smaller and smaller. And they would be bigger. See, look, I want to tilt it. There's just a way that you want to. So this would be out like this, and this might come down this side. That little bit of meat, right? To the sidewalk. So let's say I want to have a fence. Oh, actually, I'm going to put it in front. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense. A fence around the house. So it's going to cover up some of the loveliness that we just have made. Now, my horizontals are sucked back into that background. But my verticals are stuck in this 90-degree world. So it has to go straight up and down. If you don't do this, look what our brain a lot of times wants to do this to the fence. It just gets all weird. So just suck back to the vantage point, and these would be smaller. You make these smaller back here and get a little bit wider. And you have to kind of play around with that because this is a little bit by eyesight, but you're kind of like, oh yeah, that looks right. I'm going to go ahead and just take this out because it's getting too weird. They don't even have a fence gate opening. They have to walk all the way around. They just, somebody started putting up this fence and they're like, it's ridiculous. Who planned this? But I'm well, we could just put some hinges right here. And a little gate pole. Ooh, they made like a invisible fence that goes into the sides, right? So then I can make this fence too come around this way, this side of the house. Again, stuck in this world of perpendicularity when things are at 90-degree angles, and that could go around. I could encompass the entire house. Kind of looking at this line and this line. And then off this corner for the bottom base, you may just see a tiny bit here. And that would go around. So then I can make a fence around the house. Now let's say I want to put some trees in, light posts, power lines. They're all going to exist back to this vanishing point. So let's just see. I think I'm going to make some trees about this tall. I want them to get smaller into the distance, so I'm giving myself some guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and make those lollipop kind of trees. They're not going to grow right on the side of the road. They're going to be a little bit off because, oh, there's a sidewalk on this side of the street too. This is a park. These guys picked a really nice place to live and walk their dog in the park right across the street. Oh my gosh, when I went to school in Chicago, and my apartment building was on the edge of a park, like literally, like right on the other edge. Right here was the park. And there was also a rec center kind of community place, and there was a swimming pool. It was so cool. I would just walk across the street and go swimming and then go right home. It was really cool. And I'd take my, being a Juneau kid, I was like, oh, I'll take all my college books out and sit in the sun because this is Chicago and read my books. And that'll be so nice. But I just would fall asleep because it was so warm. I was like, this doesn't work. Or I tried to take my computer outside to work, and it was so hot. And then the light reflecting on it, I couldn't see anything on the screen. So I was like, this is not working. So I had to go back and work inside, which was always such a bummer because I was like, what? So these could also be those kind of more like a pine tree, like what we would be used to. I could pull that off this way, but see, notice, let's do this because this looks more like what we're used to. But this is going to give me that idea that, oh yeah, these trees are going back. They're going to get closer to each other. They're going back into the distance, right? Lots of lines going on. A note to self, atmospheric perspective. We talked about that with the tea paintings. But how it works in this kind of perspective, just to know, is if I was going to color this in and I wanted it to be realistic because I have an awful lot of sky, is that and I always could never remember this, but here's the way it goes. The top of the blue of the sky is darker and it fades to lighter, because there's particulates in the air here, right? Fog and mist and rain that makes the blue filtered. And we are the closest to the stars right above us in the atmosphere, and that's why it's darker up above. So just as a way to remember if you want to color that in. So let's say I want to make this have roof panels, or like I might want to do tiles. I would go ahead and, if you really want to do this correctly, but I quite honestly have a hard time doing this. If I'm doing something more of a final thing, you could, like maybe this would be every 1/4 of an inch. I'd go ahead and just kind of measure this out. And then I take these. I don't have to have the measurement on the back, but that's just to make sure they're the same in the back, in the front, excuse me. I just pull this back. If you're going to do, if I wanted to have that kind of tile, oops, I missed one, see? Well, I see, and I could go every other. Or if I wanted to do brick on a wall, that's like that tiled roof. I would go back. I can also do the same thing here if I want to have that slats on the side of the house, some kind of siding. I'm just going to do that every 1/2 inch. And I would take this back, or I wanted this to be brick. Ironically, there's like no brick in Juneau because there's nobody that makes brick. So brick is very expensive. Another time I went to school in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was like blown away. I was like, what is all of this brick about? And everything's made out of brick. right? So then I can do that, and then I can get some siding on there. Maybe there'd be flower boxes in here. Maybe I'd want to have another street and another house, so I could cut that off. Again, this is going to be perpendicular if you live in a world where the city planners make your life easier. Then I could have another street here. I could put another house. Now this is going to be smaller. This is further away. And I can make a whole nother house back here, which is pretty cool. It's a little wobbly. But you can just start building this whole world. You can see how it slowly would kind of filter into this whole space. And all of a sudden I could have all these houses and trampolines and people walking in the park. All this kind of stuff will come into being. And this roof line is going to be more exaggerated as it goes back into the distance. So play around with that. See what happens when you create a 1-point world.